rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. You know, with all of this talk of immigration, all of these fights over immigration, all of these fights over illegal aliens, and, I mentioned, or I showed you the clip where that young whippersnapper tried to tell Scott Jennings, not to use the term illegal alien, that they were immigrants, all of this stuff. I thought tonight I'd go through a little bit of history with regards to immigration, illegals, aliens, etc. And, that way we can kind of talk about it from a historical kind of perspective. Now, there is one president in our past. His name is Teddy Roosevelt. He wrote an entire speech on what Americanism is. And it would behoove some of these stupid leftists that are out there, these ridiculous morons that are running around trying to say that, oh, no. Things like the 14th Amendment, yeah, that just covers the fact that these people come here and they're subjected to our laws. Has nothing to do with something other than just being born within our borders, which is a bunch of crap. And I've told you this, but there's also a concerning piece and observation out by a gentleman with regards to this whole thing that I think everybody needs to pay attention to, because this guy might be hitting on something that is going to be a problem, in the very near future. And I'll go through that in just a few minutes. But first, let's go ahead and get ourselves ready, because the NJY Girls Youth Band, I always screw this one up. The NJY Girls Youth Band is sitting over in the green room getting themselves ready. They're tuning in their instruments. They're getting everything all set up. So, I would appreciate it if you are of mind. Please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with the NJY Girls Camps Band. I always screw this up. In the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah.
All right, and there we are. Thank you, ladies, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you haven't submitted your pledge, I would appreciate it if you would do so. I am looking for 26, number all the way up to 26 in 2026. I'm at 21 right now, and I see I've got a 22nd potentially coming. The 22nd, of course, they're having some challenges with the size of the file, which is fine. We'll get it figured out. But if you haven't submitted it yet, please do so. All you need to do, for the most part, is record yourself reciting the pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, attach it to an email, send it off to me, send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online, and I will get you into the rotation. If you do it on your phone, if you record itself on your phone, then what you can do is you can use the share option. That's the S-H-A-R-E, share option, and send it off the same way. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. Alternative methods. You can also send me a Google Drive link. You can send me a Dropbox link. You can send me a Box link. You can also send it, potentially, through Facebook Messenger as well. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can do it. I mean, I just sit there and talk about all of that, but there are a bunch of different ways that I've received these things. So all you got to do is get it to me, and then I'll take care of the rest. All right, folks. Today is, of course...
Down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
That's right, it's Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. And, of course, tonight's Whiskey Wednesday is in the requisite TGRN True Grit Roots Network. Fantastic red, white, and blue logo there. You know, I got to get my partner to put the red, white, and blue logo in on the shirts. But there it is, the red, white, and blue logo. TGRN True Grit Roots Network. And it is got the requisite stones in the bottom. There they are. Ooh, there they are. Right there in the bottom of the glass. And tonight, in the glass, a little apropos, we're going to be talking about Jefferson in a little while, but here is Jefferson's Reserve. This is a very old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, very small batch. And so there it is. There it is. I guess everybody in the Midwest is about ready to get hit with a cold snap. I mean, anyway, speaking of TGRN, I'll tell you in a minute, but requisite first sip, of course. Oh, yeah. That's some smooth stuff. My business partner, Jonathan Oogie Richards in TGRN, posted about the fact that they're about ready to have a cold snap. Like, their highs, now keep in mind, he lives in Central Texas. Their highs are going to be below freezing by mid to late, or end of the week, I think, just in a few days. Just in a few days. I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, we're barely getting below freezing at night. See, I like the cold weather. Personally, I know I'm a little strange that way. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about our headline sponsor, which, of course, is True Grit Roots Network. TGRN.net is our home on the web. That is TrueGritRootsNetwork.net. That's TGRN.net. And we have on our main page, you can see here, the Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio, as well as the Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio. You can listen to one or the other. Try not to listen to both because they just don't sound good when they're both playing. But you can listen to them through your browser. There's the players right there. You hit the little play button. Little play button right there, and you can listen to them right through your browser. Or, and we would appreciate this, if you want to take us with you during your day, download the app. You can pick one or both of the apps. Download them from the App Store or Google Play. You can download the Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio app or the Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio app and listen to us. Take us with you on your mobile device. Take us with you. And listen all day long. We have some fantastic music, fantastic sets, and fantastic on-air personalities. That's right, fantastic on-air personalities, one of which, if you listen to Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio, is my buddy, Jonathan Oogie Richards. That's right. You can listen to him a couple times a week, I think, or maybe it's just one. I can't remember. He's so busy and so moving around and everything else. But I do know that he does do like a show on Friday nights that is just fantastic. So you can go and check that out. That's over on Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio. Download them both. Now, if you want to show your appreciation, you can come here. Right here, I'm flashing it. It's right up there in the left side of where my closed captioning is. You'll see there's a red flashing. That's the shop link. That is the shop link. And if you hit that link, you'll head on over to our shop where we have t-shirts, hoodies, and caps with each either the True Grit Roots Network logo, the Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio logo, or the Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio. You can pick and choose. There's a variety of colors for all of them. I personally like the True Grit logo, but I got to get him to put the USA logo up there, the red, white, and blue logo up there. But yeah, go and check it out. It's nice prices. They're good. You can support the radio station. I really would appreciate it, and I know that the rest of the TGRN crew would appreciate it as well. You can even get a cap. If you're really not interested in hoodies or T-shirts or whatever, get a cap. That's all I got to do. Anyway, head on over to shop.tgrn.net. That's shop.tgrn.net. tgrn.net. Shop.tgrn.net. Yeah, it's my closed captioning is finally doing it. Anyway, go and check them out and buy yourself a little something. Show your appreciation, your support for True Grit Roots Network or Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio or Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio. Do it today. And of course, we thank you for listening. We do. We see you, but we thank you. Oh, if Jonathan's listening right now, man, if Oogie's listening right now, he's probably like going, just shut the hell up. Anyway. All right. Well, I spoke about this before we get into the full-on topic that I want to talk about. I spoke about this. There was a new acronym that was coined for the affluent white female liberal or liberal female. Nah, it's female liberal. And it was called the Awfuls, the AWFLs. Well, now that acronym has increased by one letter. And the New York Times hates it. Why does that not surprise me? Well, the New York Times, one of the most liberal propagandist mainstream media leftist outlets that is out there. But the new acronym for liberal white women is awful. That's right. Now they put in the U, which stands for affluent, white, female, urban liberal. That's right. Affluent, white, female, urban liberal. Well, I agree. They are awful. Anyway, apparently the New York Times published a lengthy piece last Friday about this acronym. Conservative commentators have been using the term to describe liberal women protesting immigration enforcement in Minneapolis following the fatal shooting of the activist Renee Good. Yeah, on January 7th. New York Times even contacted the Department of Homeland Security about the acronym's growing popularity. Like, they really should give a crap. Just saying. Anyway, DHS spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin told the paper, quote, "I'm more concerned with facts on the ground than I am about acronyms." Eric Erickson, who is on X, he posted an awful, and then he spelled it out, affluent, white, female, urban liberal, is dead after running her car into an ICE agent who opened fire on her. Progressive whites are turning violent. ICE agents have a right to defend themselves. And, of course, he was responding to a post by the Minneapolis police chief. Or somebody by the name of Libby Evans, but they posted a video of the police chief. But anyway, the New York Times reported that the conservative commentator posted that Orlando radio host Pierce Outlaw called such women the scourge of polite society. I would tend to agree. Oh. Of course. My Whiskey Warriors have come up with some perfect substitutes for urban. Free Chevy says unreasonable. Yeah, that would be true. Nana is like, you should be for ugly. You meaning the letter U. And that was concurred by Jarhead and Pekarik. Cat Pekarik. They all just, they're just like, oh yeah. Anyway. The paper itself leaned on academics to explain conservative criticism of affluent white liberal women. Rutgers political scientist Dr. Shauna Shames told the New York Times the term stems from anxieties about race, gender, and immigration among Trump's base, which I don't see how, I mean, okay, this is where these lefty lunatics really get out of base. I haven't quite figured out. I honestly haven't quite figured out why they seem to think that Trump's base, the MAGA faithful, really care about things like race, gender, and immigration. I mean, the only thing we really care about in terms of race is, well, are you American or not? The only thing we care about gender is there ain't not but two genders. There's none of all this, if I coined the phrase from Mark Robinson, there's all this crap running around about, I can be a GETTR, whatever the hell that is. I have no idea what that is. No, there's male and female. That's it. That's all you got. You're either one or the other. That's it. Anyway. And then, of course, there's immigration, which all the Trump people are concerned. All the Trump people who are concerned, they're concerned about immigration. They're concerned about illegal aliens. That's it. We don't care about the rest of you. Hey, if you're an illegal alien and you leave here under your own power, you get the opportunity to come back the legal way. At that point, we don't care about you anymore. You come back the legal way, we don't care. In fact, we would welcome you if you want to come back the legal way. But we're not interested in that. We're interested in law and order, not necessarily that immigration. Oh my gosh, the lefties are like, you guys are all against immigration because you think they're stealing your jobs. No, illegal aliens are stealing jobs from Americans, folks. If you're coming here as an immigrant, a legal immigrant, and hopefully with the idea that you're going to become a naturalized citizen at one point, hey, we're okay with that. That's the way it works around here. Anyway, college-educated white women backed Harris. That's Kamala Harris. By the way, there's still questions as to whether or not Kamala Harris is going to make another run. I still see idiots on social media who are backing her, which, I mean, they're about as stupid or even worse than she is. But anyway, college-educated white women backed Harris by a 17-point margin, up from Biden's 9-point margin in 2020, according to the Center for American Women in Politics at Rutgers University. Yeah. That's why we think you're stupid. Anyway, yeah. So there you go. Oh, there you go. There you go. So the awfuls, I had a problem with the acronym awful, AFWL, because it didn't have the U in there. Well, now it has the U. So I think we're good to go. Becky Down Under, she added one, ungrateful. And you know what? I got to tell you, that is really on point. That is really on point. How astute is it for an Australian to actually pick up on realistically what these leftist lunatics here in America really are all about? Man, you just reminded me, okay, sidetrack. You just reminded me, I got into it with a idiot I think it was on my Facebook page, but anyway, and they were sitting there talking about how, bad America is and how horrible America is and all this other stuff. I was like, I really don't seem to understand this. You live in the greatest country on the planet. The greatest country, arguably, in history. You live in the most prosperous country in history. You live in a land with freedom and opportunity, unlike any that this whole planet and history has ever seen. And yet the only thing that you can do, the only thing that you could do is spit on it. See, that's the ungrateful part of these idiots. So you know what? I think that's the new acronym, at least here on this show. The new acronym is going to be affluent, white, female, ungrateful, liberal. And that is exactly what they are. That is exactly what they are. They are ungrateful for the fact that they live in the greatest country that this planet has ever seen. There are so, you know, if it weren't for America doing all of the things that it did, we would be speaking German right now, for an example. Yeah. Or realistically, maybe even Japanese. I don't know. We certainly wouldn't be speaking English at this point. Yeah. If it weren't for America, that would be our back-to-back World War championships. Just saying. Anyway, and I'm not, please understand, I'm not discounting our partners within that, but realistically, I mean, if we weren't there, it would have been a struggle and probably not happened. But anyway. All right. Yeah, so affluent, white, female, ungrateful, liberals. There you go. Well, speaking of immigration, there's a bombshell new report out, this in Town Hall. There was a new policy briefing that shows that the Trump administration is on target to actually drastically reduce the amount of legal immigration as well. So not only are we getting rid of illegal aliens, but we're also reducing the amount of legal immigration. By the way, I've caught a news story that apparently ever since this ICE incident in Minneapolis, the number of people who are self-deporting has increased. Like, drastically increased. So those of you who are self-deporting, you know what? My hats are off to you. Come back the legal way, and we'll be more than happy to bring you back in. Anyway, back to where I was with this piece in Town Hall. The National Foundation for American Policy published a policy analysis estimating that up to 2.3 fewer green cards will actually be issued by the Trump administration, which that alone is a 50% decrease from the year 2023. The estimate also concludes that chain migration will be heavily impacted by the Trump administration's commitment to tighten its immigration policy, with up to 1.6 million fewer green cards expected to be issued to applicants designated immediate relatives of U.S. citizens. The immediate The immediate relatives of U.S. citizens category, which are spouses, children under 21, and parents of U.S. citizens, is not subjected to a numerical limit and as a result does not have any backlogs, the organization said in their report. It said since there are no backlogs, new restrictions on admissions in this category are a crucial way for immigration opponents to achieve significant reductions in legal immigration. So much of the focus of the Trump administration's immigration policy has been on its effectiveness in combating illegal immigration, with President Trump announcing that the illegal border crossings are at historically low levels as of Tuesday. So through these policies, the Trump administration has achieved net negative immigration for the first time in 50 years, meaning that we have more people leaving than we have people coming in the country. Now, people talk about overpopulation. People talk about, our cities and towns and the strain that all of our infrastructure has because of all the people that are here and so on and so forth. There's even talk of places like Phoenix, Arizona not having enough water because of all the people that have moved there and all this other stuff. Yeah, okay, fine. Trump just solved your problem. Well, except for those in Florida and Texas who are actually getting a net influx of migration for all of it. But anyway, yeah. Yeah. All right. All right. Well, Trump popped up in a briefing. And while he was there, because one of the things that the leftists and the leftist mainstream media have been doing is they've been hiding the actual truth, like what ICE is actually doing. Now, they sit there and they talk about ICE attacking U.S. citizens, or, for an example, if you just happen to speak another language, that ICE is going to bust down your door and you're going to get ripped from your home. Yeah, none of that is going to happen, okay? Now, as far as that goes, okay, if you are here on a green card, you are legally obligated to carry identity and that green card with you. It's not like an American citizen who doesn't necessarily have to carry their passport with them everywhere. But you must, if you are here on a green card, meaning a visa, you must carry that with you so that you have your identification. That's part of the law, people. That's part of regular law. And so, make sure that you have proper identification. If you're here legally, you have the proper identification. You run across an ICE agent who questions your being here, you just show it to them and you're done. Generally speaking. So, yeah, it's just, they're not sweeping Americans off the street. You might pick up an American or two, but just like any other criminal sweep, if I were to look like, for an example, if I were to look like a criminal that is out there, all right, that they are searching for. Let's say they get an all-points bulletin and they say, white male, they give my physical characteristics, I match. That's who we're looking for. Wearing a cowboy hat. No other specifics other than that, the physical description aside. And I get swept up in that. Well, I get held until I get identified. And then once I'm identified as not the perp, guess what? My ass gets released. Is it an inconvenience? Yes. Is it a pain in the ass? Yes. But I am not going to sit there and complain about the fact that the law is doing its job. They're looking for somebody that looks like me. Okay? And if they're looking for somebody who looks like me, then of course I'm going to be, hey, you know what? Here, I promise you I'm not him. But that being said, I understand you need to verify all of that, so take your time. Because that's just the way things work, folks. That's just the way things work. So if you have proper identification, and I guarantee you if they were to go and fingerprint me, that's fine. I've been fingerprinted before. That's just all there is to it. I mean, go ahead, fingerprint me. You'll find me online. Or not online, but you'll find me in the database. I don't know about my DNA, though. I'm kind of worried about that. Well, I'm kind of curious about that because I think I was in the military right when they were starting to collect DNA, but I could be wrong. Anyway, they took so many pints of blood, it doesn't even matter. If it shows up, it shows up. I don't really give a crap because, frankly, I'm not going to do anything illegal, so there you go. Anyway. All right. Well, as I was saying in terms of the as far as what I was talking about in terms of Trump showing up at the surprise briefing appearance, He started holding up mugshots of illegal aliens and criminals in a room full of reporters on Tuesday in order to make sure that they, meaning the reporters, understood that this is what ICE is doing. Let's go ahead and take a quick listen.
And it's been caused by a previous administrator. Look at this, one after one. Boy, these are rough characters. These are all criminal, illegal aliens that, in many cases, they're murderers, they're drug lords, drug dealers, they're the mentally insane. There's some of them who are brutal killers, they're mentally insane. They're killers, but they're insane. These are just in Minnesota. California, it's worse. In other states, it's worse. No, Minnesota, the crime is incredible. The financial crimes are incredible. And the problem is because of the agitators and insurrectionists, whatever you want, troublemakers, but they're paid agitators and insurrectionists. Nobody talks about the fact that $19 billion at a minimum is missing in Minnesota, given to a large degree by Somalians. They've taken it. Somalians, can you imagine? And they don't do it. A lot of very low IQ people, they don't do it. Other people work it out, and they get them money, and they go out and buy Mercedes-Benzes, and they come from here, they have no money. They never had money. They never had a life. They never had a government. They never had a country, because there's basically no country. Somalia is not even a country. They don't have anything that resembles a country.
Anyway, so I just wanted to play that for you because he was holding up, for those of you that couldn't that weren't on the video portion of the program, I can just tell you he was holding up pictures. And he went through about 5 or 6 of them, and he was holding up pictures of the ones that were arrested in Minnesota. He's essentially making the point that, hey, Minnesota, we're not picking up nice people here. We're picking up criminals. Now, keep in mind, criminals, as soon as they cross the border illegally and are here illegally, that is criminal in nature. So, anyway. So there you go. Oh, all right. Well, anyway, he kind of pointed out about the Somalis. You know, one thing about Trump, which I'm just going to be honest with you. One of the things that kind of just is off-putting for me about Trump is how quickly he can shift gears. It's like I used to work for this guy not too long ago, and his mind ran at 100 miles an hour. His mouth ran at about 35. And so oftentimes what would end up happening is by the time he was finishing up a thought verbally, his mind had already gone through like 3, 4, 5, 6 other thoughts. And so sometimes when you would be speaking to him, he would essentially, it seemed like he would jump from topic to topic. And anyway, I kind of wonder if maybe a little bit of this is happening. Not necessarily that Trump is having a mental breakdown or anything, but that's one of the things I have a really hard time, me personally. If you can't do a coherent string of thoughts, I have a hard time kind of tracking that. And it's like, okay, whoa, stop. I got to slow them down. And like, can you tie those two back together for me? Because obviously you walked through something in your mind that was going by so fast that your mouth didn't catch up. Anyway, I've known a couple people in my life like that. And it can be a little off-putting because you're sitting there and you're trying to like understand what it is that they're saying. Now, keep in mind, somebody could look at me and go, well, what do you think about Kamala Harris? I mean, that's what she did. No, Kamala Harris is something different. Kamala Harris puts together a word salad to try and sound like she actually knows what she's talking about when she has no effing clue. Okay, you can tell, believe me, you can tell the real smart people who have a difficulty, and not that it's bad, but a difficulty taking their thought process and actually being able to verbalize it in a coherent manner. Because that you can see. It's literally like you're watching Evel Knievel jump from one side of the canyon to the other, and there's nothing in between. And you're kind of like looking and going, wait a minute, I don't even understand. How'd you get from that topic to that topic? That doesn't seem to make sense. And so sometimes I think Trump gets into that. But again, it's a little bit rough. So it's a little rough for me, which is why I have a little bit of a problem following his speeches at times. So, but that's just me. That's not saying anything about Trump. That's just me. That's just how I do things. Anyway, all right. Before I get into tonight's major topic, believe me, this is going to take a little bit. But before I get into tonight's major topic, let's talk about Rumble Premium. If I can get the ad to pop up. There we go. All right. As you've probably noticed, Rumble is growing fast, and it's not slowing down. They're building a real alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually protects free speech. Now, I'm going to tell you something, and I don't know if they're going to accept this in this ad, but I'm going to tell you something right now. My reach on Rumble is much, much farther than my reach on any of my other three platforms because of the plain and simple fact that Rumble doesn't discriminate. And Rumble isn't filled with a whole bunch of lefty lunatics. Okay? That's why my reach is better on Rumble. And if you're a conservative or even a moderate content creator like myself, then what you need to do is you need to head over to Rumble and get on Rumble, because I'm telling you, Rumble is the free speech alternative to YouTube, X, Facebook, all of it. You guys don't understand until you experience the hate, the ludicrousness, the absolute utter moron stupidity that exists, especially on Facebook and YouTube. But anyway, as I was saying, Rumble is building a free and alternative, a real alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually protects free speech. And now there's this thing called Rumble Premium, which is an easy way to upgrade your experience. With Premium, you get ad-free viewing across the platform. No pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content that you have came for. Okay? Plus, Premium members unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, behind-the-scenes drops, and more from your favorite creators. Right now, Rumble is offering $10 off an annual subscription. In order to get that, all you need to do is go to rumble.com/premium. That's rumble.com/premium and use the promo code STUDIO, STUDIO, at checkout, and you'll get that $10 off the price of the annual subscription. That's rumble.com/premium, promo code STUDIO, to get the $10 off that annual subscription. No ads, more freedom, and content that you actually care about. That is the deal. Go to rumble.com/premium. And for those of you that don't know, that / is the question mark key on your keyboard. Use the promo code STUDIO at checkout, and Rumble will give you $10 off. $10 off your annual subscription. Rumble.com/premium, promo code STUDIO. All right. Folks, you've got to understand this whole thing about immigration, this war against immigration enforcement. And not only that, but also the reclassification of birthright citizenship, which has never, ever had to deal with just being born within our borders, okay, historically speaking. Has never had to deal with that. This all is tied together. This is if you think about it, this is like a military strategy in order to undo the American principles and values and foundation that was put together by the founding fathers and the framers of the Constitution. Okay? Now, there's this guy. His name is Peter Schweizer. Okay? Peter Schweizer. And he is an author and investigative journalist. And he actually has a bit of a warning because he's uncovered something that China is doing to us. Okay? China is doing to us. And it's a very, I got to be honest with you, it's sort of an elegant strategy, one that I kind of think is sort of a, what do you call it? It's definitely underhanded for sure, but it's using our own rules against us to eventually usurp us. Schweitzer described what China is doing as an organized government-backed strategy to exploit birthright citizenship in the United States. Now, he argues that this is a serious and largely unaddressed national security vulnerability. Let me read that again. A serious and largely unaddressed national security vulnerability. Now, Schweitzer made these remarks while discussing on how foreign nationals, particularly from China, are able to secure U.S. citizenship for their children under the current interpretation of American law, despite the lack of reliable data tracking in terms of the nationality of the parents. Let me go ahead and play this for you because I got to tell you, this right here, and believe me, it's not just China. China's the one that seems to, at least according to Peter, China's the one that seems to have done it. I actually think the Islamists are going to use this as well. And that actually even scares me just as much, if not more, than the Chinese. Okay? But here, let me let Peter tell you, and I'm going to turn off my background sound so that you guys can hear this. Let me let Peter explain it to you. Take a listen.
Here's what I think a lot of people don't appreciate and understand. China, for example, has created an industrial model for birthright citizenship. This is organized. The Chinese government talks about it in government newspapers. You have a right to have this in the United States. They allow companies to create these services. We have no idea how many foreign nationals are engaging in birthright citizenship in the United States because we don't collect information on the nationality of the parents. We just say the child is born, here's a birth certificate. China has looked at this, and the Chinese estimates are stunning, Mark. The Chinese government believes that over the last 13 years, each year, 100,000 Chinese nationals have been born in the United States. What that means, Mark, is there are more than 1 million U.S. citizens, I'll put that in air quotes, that were born here, but they're children of the Chinese elite that are growing up in China. And when they turn 18, they're going to be able to vote. They're going to be able to get government jobs. And let's remember the 2016 election where Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton. That race was settled by 80,000 votes. So this is a huge national security threat. And birthright citizenship, it's not random, it's organized. And the Chinese have an industrial model for carrying it out.
So think about what he is saying there. Think about what he is saying there. The Chinese, according to his claim, have decided that what they do is they send immigrants, whether they're, legal or not, they send them here to have babies. And those babies, because of the morons on the left, those babies have legal citizenship according to the current interpretation of birthright citizenship. And that in a few years, not too long from now, he said 13 years ago, this has been happening for 13 years, 100,000 that have been born every year for the last 13 years. In 5 more years, these people are going to turn 18. And when they do, because they are American citizens, by our own stupidity, because they're American citizens, they have been raised in China and brought back here to the United States, or will come back here to the United States, and have all the rights and privileges of 100% citizenship. Because the stupid idiots of the left have said, well, hey, if you're just born in the United States, I mean, shit, you're a frickin' citizen. Pardon my French there. Folks, this is a national security threat. And believe it or not, this kind of scenario is exactly what the founders warned us against, and also were very well aware of and fearful of on their own. See, this is part of the reason why I sit here and I tell you, hey, just because you're born on this land means almost next to nothing. There is a secondary step. There is an additional step that needs to come into play when it comes to being a citizen. Now, one of our presidents, and I hope I don't screw this up because this is really, really important, folks. One of our presidents gave a speech, and this speech that he gave talks about everything that we are seeing today that is weakening our national resolve, that is weakening our national identity, that is weakening everything that we have built, that the framers and founders counted on to build the foundation and to be connected here as a United States citizen. Now, here is what he is talking about. And what I am talking about is Theodore Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt. He delivered an address before the Knights of Columbus at Carnegie Hall on the evening of October 12th, 1915. This address he titled Americanism. And in it, he goes through a bunch of different items that he felt classified Americanism. Now, in this speech, about halfway down, he hit an area that is near and dear to my heart. He talks about this. This is a quote from the speech. There is no room in this country for hyphenated Americanism. There is no room in this country for hyphenated Americanism. He continues and says, when I refer to hyphenated Americans, I do not refer to naturalized Americans. Some of the very, very best Americans I have ever known were naturalized Americans, meaning Americans that were born abroad. But a hyphenated American is not American at all. He goes, this is just as true as the man who puts native before the hyphen as of the man who puts German or Irish or English or French before the hyphen. Americanism is a matter of the spirit and the soul. Our allegiance must be purely to the United States. We must unsparingly condemn any man who holds any other allegiance. But if he is heartily and singly loyal to this republic, then no matter where he is born, he is just as good of an American as anyone else. Folks, he was talking about the intricate knot of people claiming that they were German American, Irish American, English American, French American, Scandinavian American, Italian American. He calls them out in his speech, each preserving its separate nationality, he says, each at heart feeling more sympathy with European of that nationality than with the other citizens of the American Republic. Folks, this is the start. This was the start of the breakdown. When the whole idea came around that, hey, I am an African American because of the fact that they had dark melanin in their skin. That's the only tie that these people, many of these people have. You know, you talk to a kid today, a teenager today, and unless they literally just got here from Africa and you hear them say, well, I'm an African American. No, you're not. Especially if you've never set foot on African soil. If your parents were born here in America, that is considered American. You are, period, American. There is no other choice. There's no hyphenization here. And by the way, people don't seem to understand that America is one of the few countries that does not recognize dual citizenship. And in fact, he even talks about that in his speech. He essentially is saying that, hey, look, there can be no loyalty anywhere else. It must reside with America. Now, this is in 1915, okay? This was after, just so you understand, after the 14th Amendment was written. This was after the 14th Amendment was written. In his belief, you cannot be hyphenization of anything. You must be American. Now, he continues even further. He goes and he says this: for an American citizen to vote as a German American, an Irish American, or an English American is to be a traitor to American institutions. And those hyphenated Americans who terrorize American politicians by threats of the foreign vote are engaged in treason to the American public. Okay? Now, he also continues down a little bit further, and he talks about, I think I lost my place. Nope, there it is. He talks about the melting pot of coming together. He says this. He says, the foreign-born population of this country must be an Americanized population. No other kind can fight the battles of America, either in war or peace. It must talk the language of all its native-born fellow citizens it must possess American citizenship and American ideals. See, this is what he's talking about here. This is what he's talking about here. He is talking about you have to be full-hearted American. In other words, this goes beyond where you are physically born, okay? This goes far beyond where you are physically born. This is more of a conscious decision, an allegiance of sorts to the American Republic. And he basically states this. He says it must stand firm by its oath of allegiance in word and deed and must show that in very fact it has renounced allegiance to every prince, potentiate, or foreign government. This is what Americans coming from foreign lands have to do. He goes, it must be maintained on an American standard of living as to prevent labor disturbances in important plants and critical times. None of these objects can be secured as long as we have immigrant colonies, ghettos, and immigrant sections, and above all, they cannot be assured as long as we consider the immigrant only as an industrial asset. So what he's talking about here is we need to embrace the immigrants, the legal immigrants that are come here. Okay? But he's pointing out that you can't have, like what we have with the Somalis, like we have in Dearborn, Michigan. You cannot have separation of those kinds of places. He is talking about assimilation. He's talking about they have to come here and become a part of Americanism. He is talking about coming here and being a part of it. Now notice, he never once says that it's just by being born within our borders that everything is okay. No, what he's talking about here is clearly that, hey, you got to have more than that. That's just the first step. That's just the first step. And he basically had a huge belief that in order to be American, it is even more than just being born here. Now, a lot of people have questions with regards to what does natural born mean? Because in our Constitution, we have the clarification that the president himself, has to be natural born versus being a plain citizen in order to be a senator or a House or a representative. And there's some question as to what does natural born actually mean? Well, there's an argument with regards to being natural born. And the argument basically goes that the idea of a natural born individual is essentially different than what the common law of England, which a lot of these leftists keep trying to tie the 14th Amendment. Oh, no. This goes all the way back to the common law of England. No, actually it doesn't. See, there was a separation in the idea of the founders between what is considered to be natural law and man's law. See, natural law was God's law. And the idea of a natural-born citizen means that you cannot, under any circumstances, be considered a citizen by anything other than by blood, which is what natural born means. Now, keep in mind, this means that your father, not necessarily the mother, but the father, must have been an American citizen. See, natural born means that there is absolutely no question whatsoever that you are an American citizen. Meaning that you were not only born within the realm and lands of the United States, but you also have complete and total allegiance to the United States via your connection to your parents, who are United States citizens. Most of the time, natural-born citizens. And see, this is where the difference comes into play. See, a lot of people think, oh, natural born, that just means that you were born here. No. There is a connection to your parentage. To be considered natural born means that you were begotten from your parentage, your parents who were American citizens. Natural born citizen does not mean citizenship by place of birth. And see, this is why people who are sitting here who are saying things like, well, Donald Trump, he's a natural born citizen. Every president that we've had is a natural born citizen. And do you want to know why they put that clarification in? Plain and simply because the founders believed that the presidency, at a minimum, needs to be as far above any type of soil, and by soil I don't mean the earth, I mean dirt, of a foreign power. See, back when they were brought here, the Americans didn't follow along with the idea that just because you were born in England, that necessarily meant for you to be a subject of the British Crown. And in fact, they even fought a war over it. What do you think the War of 1812 actually was? What do you think the War of 1812 was all about? They fought a war over the idea that they were not British subjects by birth. There's two different perspectives right now. When we start to move throughout history, before I take off from the historical aspect, let me read to you a short little note from John Jay to George Washington on the 25th of July in 1787. This comes from the National Archives. Here, I'll go ahead and put it on the screen for you. So here we go. And where I'm going to be talking about is right here in the middle of the letter. It says, in the middle of the letter, now this is a 3-paragraph letter. I mean, really not all that long. But here in the middle of the letter, it says, permit me to hint. Sorry. God, I need my glasses. This is small writing. Here we go. Permit me to hint whether it would not be wise, meaning it's not smart, okay, and seasonable to provide a strong check in the admission of foreigners into the administration of our national government, and to declare expressly that the commander-in-chief of the American Army shall not be given to nor devolved on any but a natural born citizen. Now, again, keep in mind that this was during the framing of the Constitution. 1787 was the framing of the Constitution, and John Jay is basically saying here, hey, we literally don't want foreign influence. And if somebody is not born of a citizen parent, not born of a citizen parent, that they can't serve as president. Now, right now in the birthright citizenship camp, there are two perspectives. One is the perspective of mine, which is a historical look at not only the definition of natural born, the definition of citizenship, the definition of all of these different things, okay? And the other takes a little bit different idea and specifically focuses on the fact that the 14th Amendment talks about and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Now, it is clear from the writers of the 14th Amendment, especially Senator Howard and also Senator Trumbull. The two of them basically stated clearly that the idea of subject to the jurisdiction thereof does not have anything to do with whether or not somebody is following the laws of the United States. That is a very shallow viewpoint of that phraseology. That is a very shallow interpretation of that phraseology, because Howard and Trumbull both stated that saying that they are subject to the jurisdiction thereof is because of the fact that that means they are wholly subject, meaning they have a full allegiance, meaning they are 100% connected to America. They have no other foreign influence or anything else. That subject to the jurisdiction thereof means more than just a passing in the night, coming here, being subject to our laws, and then leaving. That the idea that subject to the subject to the jurisdiction thereof essentially means across the board that there is no other allegiance. There is no other connection to any other foreign entities, to any other allegiances outside of the United States. This is what that meant. This is what that meant. And these people, these leftists who are out there who are saying, and even, by the way, the whole Wong Kim arc, which I'll get to, the decision, which I'll get to here in just a minute. But even within the scope and realm, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, you hear from Howard, who basically stated it clearly, said, keep in mind, this is not foreign-born aliens, none of those things. None of those things. But yet they continue, the left continues to say, oh no, subject to the jurisdiction only means that they're following our laws, which means that they come here and they're following our laws. No. And not only that, but keep in mind, if you're here illegally, that means that you're not following our laws. So even the definition of the leftist doesn't play very well when you have an illegal alien come here, drop a baby, and that baby automatically becomes an American citizen. That is bullcrap. It is entire bullcrap. Okay? Now, there's this great little blog, and I got to tell you, this is kind of interesting. For anybody who is really interested in things like American history, and especially the Federalist Papers, and where the Federalists who honestly came up with the Constitution, argued for the Constitution, and so on and so forth, this is a really nice site that you can go and check out. I'm going to show it to you right here. It's called the Federalist Blog. Goes federalistblog.us. And in this particular case, I searched up the term citizenship, and they have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different blogs with regards to this. One of them, of course, directly talks about what does the subject into the jurisdiction thereof really mean. And it basically talks about the purpose of the 14th Amendment's first section was to end the denial of those fundamental rights that belong to all United States citizens by their citizenship under Article 4, Section 2 of the United States Constitution. It was imperative to first define who was a United States citizen. This was the first time at any time, because if you look in the Constitution, they talk about citizenship. They talk about citizens. They talk about natural-born citizens. But not one single spot in the Constitution does it actually define what a U.S. citizen actually is. And it wasn't until the 14th Amendment when we decided, because of the Democrats, the Southern Dixie Democrats who sat there, and actually it was the Confederacy, the old Confederacy who sat there and were trying to say that the slaves were not U.S. citizens. And a lot of that had to deal with the fact that they didn't want the slaves to actually have the right to vote, which the Constitution guarantees to U.S. citizens. But they didn't want the idea that the slaves were going to become citizens. They didn't like that. And so when the Civil Rights Act of 1866 came around, okay, the Civil Rights Act of 1866 stated clearly that aliens were excluded. And yes, I copied that 3 times because I wanted you to understand. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 is what was drawn upon in specificity for the 14th Amendment to get put into place. Because of the fact that the Civil Rights Act of 1866 was put into place as law, and then they decided that they wanted to enshrine it in the Constitution, because as we all know, that if Congress puts a law into effect, they can change it the next time the other party gets into power. And so the reason for the 14th Amendment, and actually it was the 13th, 14th, and 15th, all 3 of them together, is designed to enshrine in the Constitution the guarantee that the slaves, in particular the black slaves of America, were allowed citizenship. Now, Madison, of course, made it clear when he was writing the Constitution, and he actually talked about this in the Federalist Papers, he actually made it clear that as far as he was concerned, the rules of who is a citizen or alien properly belonged with each state. So he was talking about how the states are supposed to figure that out. Okay? The states were supposed to figure that out. And actually, Jefferson himself, at one point, with the Alien and Sedition Acts of 1798, he himself basically said that the states were the ones that are supposed to figure it, because as far as what was going on, as far as what was happening during that time, we were in a de facto war with France, even though we never declared it. And there were the Alien and Sedition Acts were attempting to ensure that the French didn't overrun or overtake our government through political means. So all of this, of course, comes down to what actually is a citizen, or what is what constitutes a citizen. And seriously, in terms of the arguments back and forth, the 14th Amendment citizenship clause differed from the common law rule because many people believed in the English common law rule, which the English common law rule basically said, hey, if you were born under the territories that were owned or controlled by the English, you automatically have allegiance to the king. And the Americans didn't believe in that. So again, I go back to the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which basically says all persons born in the United States are not subject to any foreign power. Thomas Jefferson himself defined aliens as aliens are the subjects of a foreign power. Senator Trumbull stated during the drafting that the birthright law, meaning the 14th Amendment, debates that it was the goal to make citizens of everybody born in the United States who owe allegiance to the United States. And he basically called out the Southern Democrats by basically saying, hey, if the Negro or the white man belonged to a foreign government, he would not be a citizen. And this is the part that the leftists don't seem to get. The point is that you cannot have any allegiance to any other foreign property. And in fact, John Bingham also chimed in and said that every human being born within the jurisdiction of the United States, of parents not owing allegiance to any foreign sovereignty, is, in the language of your Constitution itself, a natural-born citizen. That's where the natural-born citizen came from. Now, if that statute, meaning the 1966 Civil Rights Act, if that statute merely reaffirmed the old common law rule, then the condition of the parents wouldn't be relevant. And the framer of the 14th Amendment, John Bingham, wouldn't have been like, hey, look, we already know that if you're born of American parents and they owe no allegiance to any other foreign country, that is the terminology of natural born, then that means that if you are subject to the jurisdiction thereof, meaning that you are wholly subject here, whether it's naturalized parents or natural born parents, you are a citizen of the United States. And during those debates, Howard and Turnbull both listed concerns, including such people as Chinese, Mongolians, Gypsies, all of those to citizenship. And also, too, another Senator Fessenden, Fessenden, also stated that he raised the question of persons born of parents from abroad temporarily in this country. All of them came back the exact same way. Every single one of them. Every single one of them came back the exact same way, that, hey, regardless If you were just born here and you have allegiances to everywhere else, you cannot be an American citizen. You cannot be considered, even if you were born here. You cannot be considered that way. And by the way, you also need to understand that the Native Americans that were here, called Indians back then, that the Indians weren't actually exactly considered American citizens either. There were some Indians that were taxed and some Indians that were not. And that an Indian which had an allegiance to their tribe was considered to not be a United States citizen. This was part of the reason why in 1924, Congress had to pass a law that basically said, oh, yeah, everybody, all Indians are United States citizens. So there you go. These people who are trying to argue against this stuff, they are losing. They are going to lose. And hopefully, SCOTUS is going to answer this, and will answer it decisively. Now, let's go to Wong Kim Ark. Wong Kim Ark being the one case that every single leftist points to. And let me just point out this, that Justice Horace Gray, who wrote for the majority, revealed exactly what the majority was up to when they wrote this. They essentially avoided discussion over the construction of the clause by the two senators themselves, Jacob Howard and Lyman Trumbull. They also are attempting to keep their prior adjudication of what the subject of jurisdiction thereof meant in the Elk versus Wilkins case out of the discussion. Because if you do that, then Wong Kim Ark actually wouldn't have been able to be an American citizen at that point. So, realistically, Wong Kim Ark, and by the way, this is something that I point out, okay, is that Wong Kim Ark was considered an American citizen because of the fact that his parents were essentially legally here as permanent residents. That they were legally here as permanent residents. And that is why he was considered to be an American citizen. Because his parents couldn't give up their citizenship to China at the time. And so because of that, even though they had lived here for a very long period of time, because of that, and he was born here, never lived anywhere else. He went back to China on a trip, comes back here, and he was considered, no, you're not a citizen, even though he is a citizen. Anyway. And this is the one case, the one singular case that the left keeps pointing to. They keep ignoring the other cases that all talk about the fact that the subject to the jurisdiction thereof is much more than just being subject to the laws of the United States. It means a lot more than just that. So I'm hoping and praying, honestly, and you should pray too, that SCOTUS actually decides to take the traditional and originalist idea that in order to be born in the United States of America to be considered a citizen, you need to have more than just a physical locality of where you were dropped. That you need an allegiance to the United States for all of this. So there you go. And in fact, as a ending note, Representative Bingham said this: national law, meaning the Civil Rights Act of 1866, basically was simply declaratory of what is written in the Constitution, that every human being born within the jurisdiction of the United States of parents not owing allegiance to any foreign sovereignty is, in the language of your Constitution itself, a natural born citizen. It was essentially to reaffirm what everybody should have already known, which is that citizenship is much more than just where you were born. It is your allegiance. And let's be honest, if we were to go off of allegiance, the Democrat Party, they don't have any allegiance to America or the Constitution. They just need to, Yeah. Anyway, all right. Enough about this. I am desperately waiting for SCOTUS to rule on this. I really hope, I really hope that they go the proper way for all of this. Now, all of that being said, I guarantee you if you go to the Federalist blog, and I'm kind of pumping them, but if you go to the Federalist blog, you can read these articles that are listed here. The Trump's birthright declaration conforms with the 14th Amendment. Nothing unusual about states denying citizenship to alien-born children, which, by the way, they used to. The definition of a natural-born citizen, what subject of the jurisdiction thereof really means, and what was U.S. versus Wong Kim Ark wrongly decided. Those 5 articles frame this in a clear fashion. So there you go. Anyway. All right, folks. Well, without any further ado, let's talk about tonight's Pet of the Week. So tonight's Pet of the Week is, let's just say it's a family. A family that has, let's say, taken up residence at Ms. T's house. So she has dubbed these the Spring Peeper family. Now, they inhabit the outside covered entry to the house, and they make great use of all of the insects that are running around because of the fact that they are, and you'll have to excuse me because I didn't do this, but they are frogs. They're small little frogs. I would be calling them tree frogs because most of the time these type of frogs show up in our trees and stuff around here. But they essentially, and this one here is in between the roof line and the roof line and the wall in the upper corner. And so there's two of them. Actually, there's up to 4, she says, but she only got pictures of the 2. But there's up to 4 of them in this area. And I guess when it rains, they really get noisy because they all start singing. But anyway, here they are. So this is Peep 1. There's Peep 2. Just peeking out from the little corner underneath the flashing. And there they are. There's another one. I think it's the same. Maybe number 3. I don't know. But there you go. Or actually, yeah, this is a third one. So there they are. They're like these little tree frogs. And there's 2 of them together. You can see the 2 of them in the frame. One's up by my closed captioning, and the other one is down even with me, just a little bit over. There they are. So these are the family of Peeps. Look at them. Now these are seriously, they're very small frogs. I've picked up little frogs like this out here. In fact, there was one that was by my water spigot on the outside, and I would listen, and we even hear them in the springtime, especially. We really hear them after the rainstorm and stuff, and so it's just it's fantastic to hear and see the frogs in the springtime. So I share your pleasure in them, Ms. T. So there you go. That is tonight's Pet of the Week. If you would like to have your pet, by the way, that is emergency number 2 gone, so I have no more emergency pets anymore. So if you guys want a Pet of the Week for next week, you better get something in. Just saying. If you would submit your Pet of the Week, you can submit it directly to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get it up for Pet of the Week next Wednesday. Also, too, don't forget, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com. Get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Also, too, don't forget, before you take off, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or in the case of 3 Chevy, thumbs sideways. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.